All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of WP Roundtable. We are here with a very special guest today talking about WordPress e-commerce and the Shop plugin with Jonathan Davis. All right, so we're going to do our introductions real quick, starting with Brian. Let's go.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian Redder, out of Dayton, Ohio. WordPress developer for myself.
Client number one. My name is Kellen Mace, freelance web developer on the east side of Michigan. Glad to be on today. Glad to have you, Jonathan. Nice to meet you.
Hey everybody, I'm Nathan Driver. I'm a digital media strategist / web developer for an agency in Dayton, Ohio, and glad to be here.
All right, and I am Kyle Maurer, lead developer and co-founder of Real Big Marketing based in Jackson, Michigan. We've got today with us well-known developer in the WordPress community behind the very popular, very successful Shop e-commerce plugin. So Jonathan Davis, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, and we'll start drilling you with questions.
We've already said my name several times, so I won't bore you with that, but I'm the project lead on the Shop e-commerce project, and it's an open source project started back in, believe it or not, 2008. I myself got started with WordPress doing just freelance design, freelance development, and started with WordPress in 2005. I had a e-commerce project land in my lap, and looking at the field of options at that time, in way back time of 2007, 2008, the only thing that was out there that was serious was WP e-commerce. I don't know how many of you have used that plugin, and all respect to Dan and crew. I love those guys. They're great people. It just wasn't up to the task that I needed to fulfill on this particular project, so I started rolling my own, and that's what turned into Shop. Initially, it started out doing some pretty creative. It had some pretty creative takes on how to do the user experience, particularly with product modeling that wasn't done or tackled in other e-commerce systems. And I had been doing e-commerce with really old systems way back when. Interchange was one of them, OS Commerce. I mean, I've been through some pretty painful e-commerce projects. Pretty much anybody who approaches e-commerce comes away with scars and never really wants to have to deal with it again. Things have changed a lot since then. I mean, lots of software has come about to make the job easier. But you still got PCI headaches and all that stuff to deal with. So in any event, I don't know why I started with e-commerce as my first commercial release, but that's the way it shook out. And overall, I'm happy that I did that. I've learned an incredible amount along the way. It's been very rewarding and fulfilling, and I'll tell you some more stories about that later. So with that, that's kind of how Shop got started. We launched December 30th, 2008. The first sale of the plugin went to some guy in Malaysia, so it went international immediately. That's what I like to say. And of course, Shop started selling itself, so Shop was selling on Shop from the beginning. So we've been dog fooding from the start.
That's great. So maybe we could take just a little bit of a step backwards and let us know, what did you do before you even got into like working on the web, and what's kind of your background before that, and how did you transition to like working on web stuff?
Believe it or not, I have almost always been working on the web, like since right out of school. I had a job at a startup ISP back in the 90s, and we built the networking for this ISP, dial-up, way back when. At least up until DSL became available, and then the company I was working for sold the dial-up portion, and we went into full-time web design, web consulting. The problem was we had I was leading a team of 7 to 8 developers and designers, and we only had 2 sales guys that were not pulling their weight, so we just imploded under our own weight. From that time, I went out freelance, picked up my own clients, and from then, I mean, I had been doing freelance work since 2003, and then started doing Shop in 2008. So I've seen through a lot of projects. I've been doing it for a very long time now.
Great. What caused you to choose WordPress over any of the others?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I was getting to the point, I mean, I had been doing PHP work, oh man, I can't even remember when I started, 2000 maybe, 99, 2000. So it was really early days of PHP. I think it was PHP 3 even. That dates me a little. So I was getting to the point where, I'm solving the same problems over and over again. And yeah, you kind of bring to the table your own stack of snippets and things that you throw at a project to make things go faster and easier. But you get to the point where you realize you just need a database that powers all this content, which inevitably leads you to content management systems, and that leads you to what were the contenders at the time. And, you look at the old modular-based systems like PHP Nuke, and if anybody remembers that,
Yep.
Joomla, they're painful to deal with.
I saw the cringe when you said that.
It's hard not to, right? I mean, so WordPress was at first just doing my due diligence and doing research, trying to look for what were popular. WordPress was at the top already, was growing in popularity, but then in looking at the interface and their approach to user experience, and from the admin side especially, which is where my clients would be living, that's what sold me initially. I wrote just a quick plugin to see how the plugin architecture worked. It seemed easy to adapt, and I started right out doing custom themes for it for my clients. So it just worked right from the beginning. I did some RCE helicopter club site way back when, and I think that was the first one I did as a kind of test. It was for a friend, so I did it as a test, so it wasn't under any contract work, and it worked. So from then on, I was sold. It was easy, and it just made life peachy compared to where it had been. I mean, you still had to deal with Internet Explorer things and that kind of crap, but
Don't we all?
Wait, first Joomla, now Internet Explorer. Where are we going?
Hey, I'm taking you guys down memory lane for where we've come from since then. I mean, things have gotten so much better. There's a long way to go, but there's still problems to be solved. There will always be new problems to be solved, but there are some pretty nasty headaches we used to have to deal with that have been solved, and that makes life a whole lot easier. So yeah, WordPress was something that really solidified my offering to my clientele. It solved all those problems way back then. For the region of clients I served, I mean, it was putting them light years ahead of where they were in being able to control their own website without calling me for every single thing. So, yeah. So that's how I got started with it.
Very cool. Next first question we have for you, Jonathan, is what would a typical day be like for you?
Is there a typical day for me? I don't know. Well, I still do quite a bit of support wrangling myself. I mean, when you do a plugin like Shop, there's an infrastructure of support that you have to solve. I think for any plugin developer, any developer of any commercial release, if you don't have a solution for how you're going to handle support, you're already failing before you get started. And to be sure, that was a lesson I learned hard when I launched Shop. Things started out manageable, but they grew beyond me very quickly. So I actually had to go back to square one and kind of build a support infrastructure because there was nothing at the time. I mean, people were using forums as a kind of weak system for doing it, but what I found was with forums, I got lost on who I had talked to. The threads bounce around depending on the forum you're using. So you can lose track of who you've answered, who's still open that you haven't solved the problem with. And then if you start bringing in other people, it just becomes a mess, and people start falling through the cracks. And I was having customers fall through the cracks, so I had to solve the support problem. So typical day is still handling a fair amount of support tickets myself, answering sales questions, customer service, dealing with accounts. I usually triage some of the bug report tickets that come in through Shop. Shop is on GitHub. It is open source, free open source, so you can download it for free as in beer. But we also sell our support service now. Since we have a team of about 10 people working on support on Shop, it's really worthwhile to pay for a service where somebody's going to be there. And it's not just me. We have a group of 10 people who've been working with Shop for years now, who've kind of grown up understanding what some of the warts are in the system and knowing the quickest way to solve most problems. So in addition to triaging that, I'm also touching base with my team on a daily basis. What else? Of course, I'm patching bugs. I'm reviewing pull requests. I'm merging them in when necessary, and managing. Not just that. Then there's the whole add-on side of things, and depending on which one's on fire is the one I deal with next. And by on fire, I don't just mean that there are problems with it, but we integrate with about 50 different service providers, and when you think about managing that many integrations, each service provider has their own time tables where they're changing their interfaces. So as their APIs change, all of a sudden you got to go back to the drawing board and rewrite a whole new add-on. So there's that to be done, and then not to mention documentation. So I'm bouncing between juggling many different projects that hit my desk at any given day, and while there is a loose pipeline of which ones have priority, generally that's not done over the course of a day. It's more over a week. I can only maybe fit in 3 major objectives a day. That's what I try and stick to get things done, and the rest is just spread out throughout the week. So hopefully that answers that's the best way I can answer the question.
It does, yeah.
The
next one for you is kind of twofold. First part is, now especially these days that WordPress is gaining so much momentum, and there are a lot more players in the e-commerce space and things like that. Mm-hmm. What in your mind? What are some of your favorite features of Shop, and what makes it shine or makes it stand out? In the crowd in your mind, and then also that question is kind of a lead into the next one, which is, what do you have planned? What new great features can we look for in Shop coming up?
Sure. Okay, favorite features are, I guess I go with the real. I mean, man, there are a lot. I would say the search engine is probably among my favorite features. Search is on-site search for an e-commerce store is one of the most potent tools for getting customers connected with products they're looking for. I mean, even still, search is more powerful than just showing a limited gallery of products that they might happen to like. If they're looking for a specific product, they're going to search for it. So building, WordPress has a search system, and they beefed it up at one point with an entire indexing system, which was nice, but it doesn't go far enough for e-commerce needs. And with e-commerce, you've got more than just post-type content, really. This is going to be a deep rabbit hole, so I'm sorry, but it's going to get a little deep, and then I'll bring it back, and it'll all make sense. So, one of the features with Shop's product modeling is that instead of using post types as this sort of for all types of data, Shop does use its own custom tables, and much to some developers' chagrin, when it comes to deploying large multi-site installations, we at one point expanded to 17 tables, then we brought it back down. We're down to 10 tables. We'll probably drop a couple more tables in the future. So we've really slimmed it down. But even still, we found that you just have to have custom tables for e-commerce. There's data in an e-commerce store that doesn't fit just custom post types and metadata. For instance, one of the things that where this really shines is product specifications. It's almost like tagging, but it's almost like categorization, but it's also got its own free-form element to it. And by that I mean, think about how do you model a desk? How do you tell people about a desk? Well, you got to give them dimensions, length, width, height. You've got a key and you got a value. Well, yeah, you could use metatype or the metadata for holding those fields, but having a system that is designed for specifications, for dealing with numeric types of data and string types of data. 49 inches. When somebody types in 49 inches as a dimension, you've got a number component, and you've also got a string component to that. When you're doing large-scale, million rows of data queries on data, and you're looking for ranges of numbers, you don't want to be casting strings to integers just to get that data to come through. I mean, you're talking about lots of extra time in recasting 2 million records of data. So this is one of the benefits of having these custom tables that are designed for this type of data. So we can have this mix of string type data and numeric data, and queries are lightning fast because our tables are optimized for that. Whereas if you just have these blanket string buckets to dump your data into, you don't get those kinds of performance benefits. Now, this has ramifications when you get into the search engine. Let's say you're searching by price. Well, all of a sudden, you need to search by numeric ranges, which prices are floating values. They're decimals. So if you look at the table structure of WordPress, there isn't a single decimal floating column anywhere. You guys can. I'll wait. You can go look it up. But there isn't a single. Right now. Yeah, there isn't a floating column anywhere. There's no decimal column. There's no place to put that. So it essentially warrants it right out of the starting gate if you're going to have the top performance. So if you want the best performance, you're going to create custom data containers that fit the data you're trying to model, and that's what Shop does. It's done it from the beginning. Obviously, we've had an evolution. But where it sits now is very, very performant, even across complex searches. And so with that, you get a search engine where your customers can type in things as simple as rings greater than $50. And Shop is able to take that query and restructure it into a numeric, range-based query across that numeric data. And that's an example. So that gets back to the point of the question of why search is one of my favorite features, because we take not just the body copy, not just post content, and index that. We take everything, the tags, the names of the tags, the categories, the specs, the values of the specs, the pricing data, all of that becomes searchable in the search engine. And we threw in some other fun features that get really nerdy when it comes to search engines, but we've got the Porter word stemmer, which gets into a bunch of search engine tech that's fun to dive into, but I won't bore your audience with that, with the geekiness. Needless to say, the rabbit hole gets a lot deeper. There's just a lot of thought that was put into it. It's extensible, so a word stemmer cuts off ends of the word so that when you're searching for complex words that might have ing endings or prefixes, it can cut those off to a root word, and so you find more results that way. And this is a way of starting to cross the context lines a bit. So the reason why it's important that it's extensible is that in France they don't use English word stemmers. They need to be able to implement their own word stemmer. So it's extensible in that way. So the search engine is just incredibly powerful. It's fast. It's performant. There's an indexing system that indexes your products. There's so many nooks and crannies of where that particular feature, by just on its own, should sell Shop. But there's a lot more to it than that.
I understood.
So is that deep enough for you? Yeah.
It is, yeah. What about what are one or two flagship features you're looking toward implementing? If you can reveal those.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have an open roadmap, and it's up on the GitHub project. But one of the features that we're really working towards is adding. Right now, the admin order editor is the top feature, and that'll be coming out in 1.4. So what we're looking to do with the admin order editing is not just creating orders, but editing past orders, being able to actually have balance shifts so that maybe the customer needs a refund of a specific line item. This helps in doing a lot of the return processes. Adding an item to an old order that they forgot to order. I mean, don't you want to capture new sales? But then also having the ability to capture that new balance in payment outside of the traditional checkout workflow. So the admin order editing is definitely coming, and then that kind of leapfrogs into other features that we're looking to roll out, like point of sale capability, barcode scanning for physical storefronts who want to do the bricks and clicks model. That really want to then take their WordPress powered e-commerce site and turn it into their business workhorse. So that is the main feature and focus of the next release, which we call it Project Orion. It'll be the 1.4 release of Shop, and interestingly enough, the dovetail of that feature is that we have to have this out of storefront checkout process, this payment capture system in place to capture payments that maybe they left and the order was laid. Maybe they abandoned the order and then you send them an email to try and entice them to come back. Well, now they have a way to pick that order back up and pay for it. So you would have that on the storefront side where you can send an email to the client, to the customer, and say, "Here, you forgot to pay for your order," and they have a mechanism, a place to go through on the storefront side, on the front end side, to pay for that order. And that ties in with the admin order editing system, because you could then be creating orders from the admin and invoice people and have them pay through that storefront. So now, just in this one set of features, well thought out, we've added tremendous value to the entire platform, because now you can take it to an invoicing system. You've got this abandonment capture capability, and that helps our merchants be more successful. So that's why we're in business.
Nice. Now you mentioned a lot of requests, features that you guys are releasing. What are some of the most common requests that you have gotten since you started Shop, and how you evolved it?
Requests, probably. The requests we get are for plugins that I really want developers that are outside of the Shop development team to add as plugins, because they don't really belong in core, and frankly, our team is to the hilt on these features, so we don't have time
Right.
for all of these subsidiary features. But things like wish lists, great idea. And there is a wish list plugin, but it hasn't been updated in a while. We'd like to see that get updated. So there's opportunities there for those sorts of things. Currency exchange, multi-currency, wholesale, things that really get into much more complex pricing models that we're not quite ready to solve. If you guys want to understand the pain of e-commerce,
No.
you should read the feature requests we get, because what it unveils is that every e-commerce project is essentially a custom project. I mean, at some level, you have to customize something. There is not an off-the-shelf component for every system under the sun that is going to do exactly what you need for this specific e-commerce project. And you go with Magento, and you're talking about just it's too bloated, it takes too long. You go, and I'm not calling out don't think I'm calling out any competitors. They're competitors. I love them all. They do great things. You know, one of the issues that I've heard in Woo is you just pay for every single, your nickel and dime for everything. For WP Commerce, you've got issues with just the legacy code base still kind of haunts them. You know, and they work on it all the time, but it's a gigantic code base, so they've got and it's a long history, so there's that much more work to do. So Shop is missing lots of key feature components because we're trying to take it slow, we're trying to take it secure, try not to have, you know, credit card breaches and those sorts of things. So
right.
All of these things mean that we're taking our time and trying to do it right. And yes, others will beat us. Others will get there first, but they're going to have to solve problems that after the fact, and we hope to have them solved before we get them to get them out the door. So
nice. Just one last one. Have you gotten any requests for Bitcoins or anything like that?
Sure, but we have Bitcoin payment systems already. Coinbase is available for Shop. That was the first one we did, and BitPay I think is on the way. So we've got a couple. We have one out there already and one in the works.
Nice.
You know, when it comes to... Go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Sorry. You're talking about all these feature requests that you get.
Yeah.
What about for developers that are out there that may want to, you know, Shop being an open source thing, want to extend it? What kind of advice or messages do you have for them about extending it?
Just, you know, it's on GitHub. It's easy. Fork it. Create a branch. Write your feature and submit it as a pull request. It's pretty cut and dried. I mean, we'll work with anyone for any feature they want to add to Shop. It is a community project now. We want to encourage as much involvement and adoption as possible, particularly with developers. One of the mainstays, and I would say this is the unique value that Shop provides the WordPress community, is that it's meant to be for development, for developers. It's meant for developers to be able to turn around a project that they can give to a client, and it has management tools that are easy and simple for clients that don't shut you down. For example, you know, one thing that we did, and all of our competitors still do this today, all of the other e-commerce solutions, I shouldn't say all, but the big ones do. You know, they set up these virtual pages that are used to hold the catalog pages, the shopping cart, the checkout page. I mean, I'm sure if you've ever installed one of these, you've seen it happen. They have you set up which page is going to hold what. We used to do that, and we used the shortcode method. A lot of them do. But what happens when your client gets in there and deletes the shortcode at 3 a.m. at night because they didn't know what they were doing, right? Their store's down. They call you up at 3 a.m. You know, fires are ringing. Well, we understood that that was a complaint that developers were having to field. So we did away with it. Shop uses a virtual page system that actually fakes pages to WordPress so that those pages are always available. They're not deletable. Yes, you can disable them. You can put Shop in maintenance mode if you need to unpublish things. But the client can't just delete them. They don't go away. So this is a measure of protecting clients from themselves, protecting the developer's sanity, the developer's time, so that Shop is a developer platform. It is made for developers to write solutions for their clients that get clients successful and able to manage every aspect of the store without bringing it down, bringing it to its knees. So that was a long-winded answer, but so that's how we've designed Shop. It is definitely a developer-friendly platform. We've designed it to take down any walls that developers run into, and we're always open to hearing when developers run into frustration, pain points. We want to hear them. We want bug reports. We want issue reports.
I have to say the one I brought to your attention the other day. Easy to get a hold of you and get something resolved pretty quick.
Yeah. So when we find a brick wall, we want to bust through it so that is not in the way of a developer anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome, and I love that idea of being very developer focused in your plugin. So that would be something that I'd be asking a little bit about, like to Brian's question too, or like to your the extensions. I know that there are a lot of shop extensions available out there, and so what are you doing, or what are you looking for, or excited about in terms of like other developers creating extensions, or your team? Does your team create any extensions, or do you just encourage other people to make extensions for a shop? And what are you looking for on that front, and how do you manage it? And just tell us more about that.
Sure. Right now, we've tried to encourage people to. I mean, we've given other developers who've approached us ideas that they can run with for extensions that the community have clamored for. One of them being, for example, like an import system to be able to import data into Shop. We've had there's been a free import plugin for a while, but it's been picked up by numerous developers and dropped back off. So that's something where we'd love to have more people doing that, working on that project. There's a whole forum of feature requests for developers to mine ideas out of for things that people want. One example is something as simple as they want variations linked to color swatches, so that when you click the color or change the color of the variation you're selecting for the product, it changes which picture you're seeing in the gallery. I mean, in terms of how do we disseminate that, we've tried to put that forum's open to our entire community to use. So we left it there for that. Nobody really picked. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody. We've had about a dozen plugins come out, but by and large they've been free and up to those developers to support. So what we've been working towards now is getting a marketplace up and running. That's where everybody wants us to be, is providing a marketplace since we've got the traffic, being the place where developers can market the extensions that they're developing for Shop, get a cut, and then drive traffic probably to their other solutions. So that's, we are working towards that, but we want to get all of the infrastructure details right before we do that. One of the biggest challenges, again, it all comes back to support. If it's going through the Shop marketplace, then we've got an onus on support to some degree. I mean, it's hard to separate and say, well, you bought a third-party add-on. Yeah, but I bought it through your website. Well, yeah, but it's supported by a third-party developer. So just as a for instance, that's one of the problems to solve. We can list exactly where people need to go to get support. It still doesn't matter. They're going to come through our support channels first, which means we're wasting resources on getting them to the right support. And in the meantime, their entire user experience is suffering, and that will not abide. So you get, you've got support issues, and then also tools for the developers. We have pieces in place. We're already working on them. We have a Git repository that's tied in with the site now, so that developers will be able to tag new versions, and it auto deploys to the site. So giving them tools like that make that sort of ecosystem more developer friendly again, and we'll have probably pretty standard terms, although the details are being worked out for that. And from that, again, we'll be pushing those ideas in front of developers to say, here, run with this. And we have a few extensions of our own that we'll be rolling out. That will be adding value to our existing customers. We want to build a developer pack of some of these plugins that do things like Passport for social logins on the website. Just real easy, kind of low-hanging fruit add-ons that we'll give to anyone who's got a developer support key. They'll get access to that pack. But again, we don't want to step on these other developers' toes. We don't want to stall the community of development before it gets started. So we're trying to step lightly in that regard. So.
Yeah, that'd be. I'd imagine there's lots of interesting decisions to have to make about managing that, that whole space of all the other developers wanting to contribute, managing what goes in core, what should be extensions. You're going to do it yourself, or partner with other developers, or encourage the community to take care of it, or just all these different things that you'd be managing. But it's really cool. It seems like a lot of people in the WordPress space are having a lot of success with this model of creating a really fantastic core product and working hard to make developers want to extend it on their own.
Yeah.
And contribute to it and make it a big project like that. So I really love that concept. So maybe I'm curious a little bit to learn more about the business of what you do. So maybe you could, we're running WordPress businesses too, and let us know tell us a little bit about the business behind Shop and why you guys chose that model, and just how it works and what are you doing going forward?
Well, Shop has evolved from when it first started. It started out as a purely commercial download, so from 2008, we sold it more like you'd expect a downloadable product to be purchased, so downloadable software, and that worked for us for a number of years. But obviously with new models coming into play, you saw with Gravity Forums and Woo taking that on, and then their marketplace, the models have definitely been shifting for how you need to run commercial-based business. So Shop started out selling the plugin as a premium plugin, and then from that we of course included add-ons. And so between those two, we started this out because we thought, or at least I in particular felt, that it was disingenuous to give people a product and then not support it, or tell them that they needed to pay for support. I mean, when people buy a product, they expect to be supported. So I wanted to dispense with the complexity and this notion of an unsupported product and just tell people, you're paying for the product and support of that product. That's where it came from. And I was really hoping that would make things easier, but as time went on and the model shifted and other solutions became available going the free route that were very competitive, we had to make a shift. And so we did make the shift last year to this year-based support model, and Shop was released not just open source, but now free open source. So free is in speech and free is in beer. We've always been free speech. We've always been under the GPL, but our distribution has always been at a cost of $55. So we made the switch over to yearly subscription for support, and now you can download Shop anytime you want. And with that, of course, we still have our add-ons as well. Those have their own pricing depending on how complex the add-on is, what it's doing. Most of them are around $45. And that covers support, again, for a year, downloads for a year, past versions, etc. So it's a pretty simple model. There isn't much else to it. The reason we got to this is just this is what the market will bear. So pricing is product pricing is one of the most difficult things you'll ever have to do. One of the things that we've done from the beginning I shouldn't say beginning, very early on when we had our support system set up, was we also implemented priority support, which allows you to pay for per incident support at a quicker turnaround than the yearly support. And we manage that very carefully. In fact, we have a limited number of staff that provide priority support. And so with that, we have a limited number of credits available that are on hand and available in stock for people to grab for priority support. So that can be tapped out. That's a resource that is finite that can be tapped out. So we only give that support up until that resource runs out and everybody's tapped out and we can't support it, or we can't possibly take any more on. The reason why I bring this up is because pricing that out, we had a really difficult time finding the price point that people would buy that at. And we started out pretty high at $99 per incident and had to drop that until it reached this $49 level that people seem to buy it at. So product pricing is really, really difficult. And it will be the biggest challenge that any product developer is going to have to face.
Sorry about that.
We've got some extra contributions to this discussion tonight.
Yeah. You kind of gave us some background early on about getting involved with WordPress from the looking at CMSs out there and the dreaded J word. But how do you currently participate in the WordPress community?
So I've done a number of different things to participate. I mean, I've been to WordCamps, I've spoken at WordCamps, but I also started the meetup group in Columbus with Angie Meeker. And then I also have worked with her in the past 2 or 3 years now doing WordCamp Columbus. So that's been my best way to give back to the community. I mean, my developers and I work with WordPress on a regular basis, and we find issues in WordPress, and of course we file bug reports and things like that, but those things linger forever in WordPress purgatory on track. So, as much as we try to help in the core community as well, that at least my contribution largely is in the local community, doing meetup groups and being a part of WordCamps.
Awesome. Now, who in the WordPress community would inspire Jonathan Davis?
Oh man, there are so many people. I have met so many awesome people. Being at WordCamps, you meet the best caliber of people. Oh man. How long do you have? I have a large list of people that inspire me.
Okay, you only get to pick 3. Go.
Oh, 3. Oh man, that's killer. Man. Well, I absolutely am inspired by Nason because he started so young with WordPress and new to even PHP development and got deep so quickly. And watching how fast that man's mind works is impressive. He's a really impressive individual to get to know. And I don't even know him that well, but I've met him on lots of occasions at WordCamps and talked to him for a while. Mark Jaquith would have to be one as well. I mean, talk about a guy who really knows WordPress and the amount of code experience he has. And then probably from a product side of the equation, looking at WordPress as a whole, man, that's a tie. I mean, Matt obviously has he understands the entire pulse of the community and where the community's headed before the community knows it's getting there. So that's impressive in its own right. I think Addie from Woo, Addie and Mark at Woo are impressive as well. So, I mean, they've really changed the landscape quite a bit. So, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people in the WordPress community that inspire me.
What are some of your recommendations for people that may just be starting out with WordPress to get involved with the community, or maybe existing developers that are just not currently involved but want to start getting involved? What would you suggest to them?
WordCamps and meetup groups. I mean, those are easy ways to get started. Meeting people. Obviously, a meetup group is a way to get a little more intimate sense of the people, how people are using WordPress, and then going to a WordCamp, you kind of get the whole buffet-style introduction to WordPress at any level. So those are easy ways to jump in, even for a developer. Meetup groups might be a little harder because most of them are user groups, but there are some that will cater to developers as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's cool. That's cool to hear how much you guys are involved in the community. Those are definitely people that inspire me as well. So I know it's probably hard to cut that list short.
Yeah, it is. I hope I didn't make anybody mad that I do look up to. I look up to so many people in the WordPress community, but in different ways, because there are just some really incredible people. Not all of them developers either. I mean, there are people behind the scenes in the WordPress Foundation, at Automatic, that aren't necessarily programmers but do some amazing stuff. So
that's for sure. That's for sure. There's a lot of amazing people in this community, and it always surprises me. You know, I always feel like I'm in some, like I do a specific thing, and I'm really going to be inspired by people who do maybe that same thing that are just better than me at another level, and then I go to meetup groups and work camps and meet people totally in other worlds, and those are the people that seem to have the biggest impact on what I do, broaden my perspective,
yeah,
in different ways. It's really, really cool community.
Well, and I don't care how experienced you are or talented you are. I mean, you nailed it when you said you meet people that broaden your worldview on things. I mean, that's everybody at every level can get different perspectives from each other. I mean, I've learned so much from newbies because I had certain assumptions of how people approach software, and then the actual experience that they had taught me something entirely different. So, yeah.
Cool. Jonathan, I think that's a good lead into one of our other questions we had for you. That is, if it weren't for Shop, if you weren't continuing, that project, what would you do? What would your next best be that you would jump ship to?
I don't know. Oh man, I guess I haven't really considered it. I'm 100% Shop, man. I don't know. E-commerce. Go ahead.
I was going to say, are you just a glutton for punishment, so you'd want to gravitate toward more e-commerce, or you'd retire from that?
I'll tell you what. I guess marketing. I guess I'd go into more content, the marketing side of the equation. Yeah, because that's a field that has, I guess, aspects that I'm interested in. No matter what, when you're designing software, when you're developing software, you are at some level dealing with user psychology and understanding how a user thinks, which inevitably leads to marketing. I mean, that's all marketing is. So, yeah, I would probably, I guess, angle more towards that side, because that's a whole field.
Cool.
Awesome. Jonathan, you've been in the web development community quite some time.
You calling me old man? You're calling me. I don't have gray hairs yet, man.
I just wanted to know if you could share some of your website project horror stories from the past. If you, everybody has them.
Yeah.
If this doesn't bring any flashbacks or anything.
Yeah. Okay.
We've all got.
Well, I mean, you get, of course, you get the clients that treat you like a brush. That you're their artist, that they can change direction on command. I remember, I guess I have just at this point I've been so customer focused and less client focused for so long that most of those horror stories are now distilled to, I guess, some of the stereotypical web developer stories that you have now. I've had clients that they want it one way one day and then they change their mind back, and thankfully you kept the backup files so that you could just swap it back into place. But And that's annoying to deal with. I remember pulling some manipulation on clients, giving them really no choice, giving them a choice but no choice at the same time to get them to make the right choice. I don't have any. I guess I don't have any good ones for you today. If I would have been prepped for that one, I could have dug some up, but I don't have any off the top of my
Next
head.
time you're back on here, then
all right. I'll bring them out.
All right. So we just we're down to the last 10 minutes here, Jonathan. So much good information. It's been awesome. So I'm thinking that we're gonna just run some real quick questions past you, just to round out our list and try to get some short answer, just first thing that comes up type question. So I'm gonna shoot a few your way and we'll wind it down.
Okay.
All right. So. What is your one favorite part of the WordPress community?
One favorite part of WordPress community, I would say community. The community.
All right.
The people. The peeps.
Besides Shop, what's a WordPress plugin you can't live without?
Besides Shop. I
Stumped him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there isn't any. I mean, WordPress. No, there isn't. I don't install very many plugins in WordPress. I just don't. Most of the plugins that I use for other sites are custom rolled most of the time. I mean, I have a library of plugins that I've written that I use myself. Maybe Gravity Forms would probably be the closest contender. I mean, that's the one I guess I've used the most often because it has it has so many just utility naive uses that would probably be the one I install the most. But can I live without it? Sure.
All right.
I'll take that.
How about this, Jonathan? What is your favorite WordPress function?
Oh. Okay, now
Not
this
the
is
search.
do action.
That's a great one.
Yeah, do action. I mean, the hook system is awesome. The message dispatch model is one of my favorite design patterns.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, and I love other developers who love that.
Well, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of hooks in Shop. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's why it's my favorite. Do action, or apply filter, whichever one you want. Apply filters, yeah.
So, what would be your top most recommended resource for WordPress beginners?
Oh, for WordPress beginners, WP Beginner.
What's your top resource for developers?
WordPress Codex.
What is one prediction you have for the future of WordPress?
Prediction for the future of WordPress. WordPress is going to grow.
Whoa.
Oh.
Is that a cop-out? That's a cop-out,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
All right,
You heard it
all
here
right.
first.
Mind blown.
I'll do better.
Better call Matt now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My prediction is that they're still going to be working on the media system for a long time. They still have a lot of work to fix problems in the media system. The media library, media management. I know that there's already been chatter that they're working on that. So my prediction is lots more in the realm of media for WordPress. In fact, I think that's going to continue to be a large focus of WordPress for lots of releases.
Awesome. Do you have, real quick, a recommendation for somebody else that we should interview on the show?
Sure. Have you guys had Pippin?
Oh.
Pippin Williamson? Yeah, he'd be awesome.
Maybe you could, nudge him and say.
All right. Yeah, I'll push him your way. Pippin's amazing, and he's so well spoken, and he's such a smart guy. He'd definitely be one that. Yeah, he'd be good.
All right. So, Jonathan, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Well, I'm online primarily at ShopPlugin.net. That's the site for shop. But I'm also at ingenesis.net. That's the company behind Shop. And you can find me on Twitter at Jonathan Davis.
Fantastic. Well, it was really great talking with you.
Great meeting you all. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
That's another great episode in the books. And thanks for everybody watching. We will be back same time next week. And look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks a lot.